All right, now what's up, fam? Yeah, we got a good one. This brother name is King Tone. Recently, he did an interview where he claimed that hip hop is 50-50, siding with Fat Joe. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to give a listen, and then we're going to dissect what he has said. And you know how I like to do. I come with the receipts. So we're going to find out whether or not his narrative is true, that hip hop is in fact 50-50. What I'm going to do is play a portion of his rant, and then I'm going to stop it and we're going to dissect certain segments and see what he's saying and whether or not it has any truth in it at all. So let's go.
So growing up in New York during that era, you got to witness the growth of hip hop, and I'm sure you saw a lot of things. What do you think about how over the years it appears that many people have tried to minimize the contributions of Puerto Ricans to hip hop? Like, what did you think about the backlash that Fat Joe received when he said hip hop was made 50-50 by Latinos and blacks?
Shit, I stand with him. I might go. Listen, graffiti is rap. Breakdancing is rap. Rock is rap. DJing is rap. And rapping is rap. Rapping ain't only the dude on the mic. There was a whole thing going on in the ecosystem that made rap what it is. It was the colorful trains with the messages from Is the Wiz, from the TNT crew, and all these. The community was thriving in making his own billboards, making his own music, and making their own style. No one group did that. When they called for the peace treaty that they made everybody say became Zulu Nation, like KRS says, that's true to one point, but there's some gangs that said we're not joining that shit, and we're not doing the treaty, and we're staying Latino dirty ones, and we're staying the 50 Mad Dogs, and we're gonna keep popping this shit. I'm telling you, the culture was mixed. There's no way that the Bronx, being the Bronx, could ever one race say they made hip hop walk the Bronx in that day. It was Puerto Rican and black. There was no divide. There was no Cold Cush crew. All those people you see, you might have seen afros and a black man because everything black is black. Some of them were Dominican. Some of them were, you just didn't know it. They were black to you because they had an afro, because they were dark skinned. You didn't know what a Dominican was yet. So how could you not know that it was 50-50? I stand on that. The only person who will disagree with that is a person that's glamorizing and sensationalizing the individualism and thinking that one race made this great thing happen. It was a multicultural between the Latino and black, finding out how to replace their anger with dancing, music, and rapping.
All right, that was a mouthful. Okay, so let's start dissecting what he just said. Now, in terms of rap, he knows that Black Americans are in the forefront of rap, right? So he tries to suggest that other groups that were involved, whether or not they were involved in graffiti or breakdancing or DJing, had an influence on the rappers. He doesn't know that for a fact, and I doubt very seriously because Black Americans have been rapping since day one. But he understands in order to claim creation of hip hop, he has to attach themselves to rapping, even though they weren't part of it. So that's what he's doing on that front. It's a weak argument. It is what it is. Now, he goes on and talks about how we were all together and it was done in unison and everything like that. I call that the proximity argument. You see, when I notice in this hip hop debate, Latinos lack the evidence to prove that they were part of the creation. So what they use is the proximity argument, which means that we lived together. We went to school together. We played together. We ate at each other's house together. Therefore, by that association, they are co-creators of hip hop. Let me provide some examples.
It's up to you guys if you want to answer or not. Do you think we had to be officially sanctioned by black people to get into the space that we're in now with hip hop?
No, because back then, I never, like, you know, as much as I look, first of all, I was like 10, 11 years old when I first saw Charlie Chase. Mm-hmm. I didn't know why I was drawn to him. I can't say it was because he was Puerto Rican, because the dope thing about hip hop back in the 70s is just that you had to be dope.
That's it.
We all shared the same projects, the same beatdowns from the cops, and, you know, same poverty and all that stuff. So the geography of New York and the way we're stacked up on each other, it makes us one big family. So even where I lived over on Montgomery Avenue on the west side of the Bronx, my mom's best friends were black. And
I get it.
And so if we had a party, they were coming in and dancing salsa and dancing to Barry White and all that other stuff. So we shared the same existence.
And throughout everything.
Yeah.
School.
Religion. You know, it's the one thing that brings people together no matter what.
At that time in the Bronx, there was a heavy influx of Puerto Ricans in the Bronx. There was, of course, the African Americans, and everybody was living together.
We lived in the same neighborhoods. We attended the same schools. We played the same sports outside.
Well, I grew up in an all-black neighborhood, and I never looked at Latinos and black people different. I've always looked at us the same.
When I saw that movie...
See, those examples clearly show that Latinos, in order to claim hip-hop, they have to align themselves with Black Americans, because they don't have any tangibles that they could point to in their culture. All right, see, for example, you never hear Black Americans talking about hip hop and the creation of hip hop by aligning themselves with Latinos or living in the proximity of Latinos. It's always the other way around. And that's because they have nothing that they can actually put their hands on to say, we did create this thing. All right, another thing that was interesting about his rant, he mentioned the word multiculturalism. To be exact, he mentioned the word multicultural. All right, this is a word that they throw out all the time to put themselves in the hip hop, story. All right, so let's actually look at the definition of multicultural. All right, multicultural means consisting of or relating to many different nationalities and cultures. That's what multicultural means. Now, you remember he ran off about this thing about there were Dominicans. You didn't know if they were Dominicans. You probably thought they were Black. The problem that we're having with many Latinos in this discussion is that they don't understand the meaning of the word multicultural. Multicultural just doesn't mean nationality. It means culture as well. In other words, it's nationality plus culture. All right? So no one is denying that there were different nationalities around the period when hip hop started. No one is denying that. What we're arguing is that what cultures were present, meaning what did you guys bring to the table culturally? And the problem is that you guys brought nothing culturally, because everything in hip hop in its beginning, in its origin, was Black culture. When we talk about the vernacular, the dance, the music, the fashion, all of that was Black culture. None of that implies any cultures from the Caribbean. So what that means, all that means, it was different nationalities involved in the space of hip hop created by Black Americans. It was Black American culture that all these groups found themselves in. So they can no longer, and see, this is what we have to do as Black Americans when we enter these kind of debates. we have to force them to name the cultural influences. Don't let them off the hook by saying, oh, there were Dominicans there were Afro-Latinos, you just didn't know they were. No, we can't allow them to make that argument because they can no longer use the word multicultural if they can't identify the culture. That's what multicultural means. Both nationality and culture. So whenever someone throws out that word multicultural, ask them to explain what cultural influence that you brought to the table. If they can't provide it, it's not multicultural. It's one culture, Black American culture. All right, well, let's continue.
And as we mixed our women in the Caribbeans, we mixed our styles in the ghetto. That shit is 50-50, 100%, nothing less.
Let me go back a little bit.
Why do you
Analyzing the individualism and thinking that one race made this great thing happen. It was a multicultural between the Latino and Black, finding out how to replace their anger with dancing, music, and rapping. And as we mixed our women in the Caribbeans, we mixed our styles in the ghetto. That shit is 50-50, 100%, nothing less.
Now, what does mixing women in the Caribbean? That has nothing to do with Black Americans. Black Americans wasn't mixing with Caribbean women in the foundation of hip hop. I don't know what he's talking about. So he's basically saying there was mixing going on in the Caribbean. Therefore, there's mixing going on with the music. So the Latinos are trying to take credit for the music that we produce. It's amazing. Let's go on.
Why do you think that the narrative is being pushed to lower the contributions of Puerto Ricans in hip hop?
I don't think it's made purposely to lower the contributions of the Latino. It's made to keep in check the contributions of the Latino.
Okay, now what he's doing right here, he's trying to give an explanation as to why there's low representation of Latinos in hip hop. And basically what he's trying to do is try to suggest that Black Americans got with the white music execs and conspired to keep Latinos from getting their recognition. This is his explanation as to why there is no or very little Hispanic representation in hip hop. Let's go.
Like it was made to keep in check when the Rick Barrys and when we started singing our songs.
Okay. When he says the Rick Barry, I think he's talking about Chuck Berry, the rock and roll guitar player. Let me take it back because it's kind of confusing here, and I don't want you guys to get lost on this. So let's go back a little bit and pick it up. Let's go.
The contributions of the Latino, it's made to keep in check the contributions of the Latino. Like it was made to keep in check when the Rick Barrys and when we started singing our songs and bringing rock and roll, when we stole it from Elvis, right? We're supposed to have stole these things from them. But really, they were stealing it from our cultures.
What is he talking about? He's saying that Latinos created rock and roll. Or Latinos and Blacks created rock and roll. So not only is he saying that Latinos and Blacks created hip hop, they also helped create rock and roll. You heard him say, we. Latinos have nothing to do with the creation of rock and roll. What is he talking about? Nancy Reagan had a slogan that she simply said, just say no. All right, this is really ridiculous what he's trying to put forward here. let's go back. I don't want to continue to stop, but I mean, he's saying some crazy stuff right here. Let's go.
Supposed to have stole these things from them, but really they were stealing it from our cultures. We played the drums in Cuba. We got that shit rocking. And slave ships dropped off there and mixed with our Latinos and Puerto Ricans. So we've been mixing records with you since we've been taking you, because we seen you were black like us, you were brown like us. We didn't understand why you were shackled. And the Guanabana and the great Indians of the Caribbean start freeing the slaves.
What is he talking about? Now, he's basically saying that the Latinos were responsible for all the musical contributions that Black Americans have made in America. That's what he's basically alleging. They're responsible for jazz, blues, gospel, everything that Black Americans are known to have created. He's suggesting that Latinos, by mixing with the Latinos, that was a part of that success. You don't believe me? Let me play more of it. Let me go back a little bit more and just listen carefully to what he's saying.
Rick Barry's. And when we started singing our songs and bringing rock and roll, when we stole it from Elvis, right? We're supposed to have stole these things from them, but really they were stealing it from our cultures. We played the drums in Cuba. We got that shit rocking. And slave ships dropped off there and mixed with our Latinos and Puerto Ricans. So we've been mixing records with you since we've been taking you, because we seen you were black like us, you were brown like us. We didn't understand why you were shackled. And the Guanabana and the great Indians of the Caribbean start freeing the slaves. Then we start eating and mixing our culture.
Let me stop it. Okay. So you heard that. He's basically taking credit for our musical accomplishments. All right. So let's examine this mixing and see if it's real or not. Now, this is Puerto Rican dancing in the 50s. Now, this is Black American dancing pretty much in the same period. Where's the mixing? There is no mixing. We did our thing. Puerto Ricans and Cubans did their thing. If there's any mixing, you guys learn from us. That's the history. That's what the history tells us. You guys learn from us. Everything that you learn, that you attain musically, you got it from foundational Black Americans. I can certainly document that. I'm going to take it even a step further. In the description, I'm going to put a couple of videos in there. One is going to be a 1920s recording of an Afro-Cuban band. Give you an idea what Cuban music, Afro-Cuban music sounded like before they came to New York. The other video is going to be a musical rendition created by James Reese Europe around the same time, either 1917 or 1919. I can't remember the actual date. But you'll get to see the difference in musical ability between what the Black Americans were doing versus what the Cubans were doing. Now, this is not to cast any shade on the Cubans, but we were definitely a step ahead. So everything that the Cubans learned, for the most part, everything that the Puerto Ricans learned, they learned it through us. That is a fact. Now, let's do this. Let's continue to listen to this thing here. Let me take it back a little bit. So, because I know we lost our place and I don't want to, let's take it back a little bit right here. So I know where I am.
We got that shit rocking. And slave ships dropped off there and mixed with our Latinos and Puerto Ricans. So we've been mixing records with you since we've been taking you, because we've seen you were black like us, you were brown like us. We didn't understand why you were shackled. And the Guanabana and the great Indians of the Caribbean start freeing the slaves.
All right, let me do this. Let me show you this piece of information. Now, he talks about some Indian tribe freeing the slaves. This is the actual truth. On March 22nd, 1873, the Spanish Nation Assembly finally abolished slavery in Puerto Rico. The owners were compensated with 35 million pesetas per slave, and the slaves were required to continue working for 3 more years. Indemnity bonds paid as compensation for former owners of free slaves as compensation. So I don't know what is he talking about, some Indian tribe freeing the slaves. Like I said, King Tone is just making up stuff. He's not giving you any documentation, any sources where he's getting his information from. All right, let's go.
We've been taking you because we've seen you were black like us, you were brown like us. We didn't understand why you were shackled. And the Guanabana and the great Indians of the Caribbean start freeing the slaves. Then we start eating and mixing our culture. So now you want to say in the Bronx, you wasn't eating rice and beans and mixing it with us, eating sofrito and fucking music in Puerto Rican houses, dancing with our women. Now it's one culture rap. Get the f here. You must be blind and stupid if you think somebody's going to believe that, who lived in that time, who had open eyes. Now what happens is when someone gets the piece of the pie, right? So the Jews and the American dollar had to confess and let us into this music industry. So then they let a black and a white guy share the wealth. So then once we got the wealth, what we do, we duplicate the behaviors of our oppressor. So then once the conglomerate became black powered, it was hard for Latinos to make it through, because if you let one in, you're taking one out.
All right, so as you can see, he's saying that black and white people, white execs from the music industry, got together and said, we got to keep these Latinos out. We want all the pie. We don't want any Latinos to get the pie. So let's test that theory. Let's see if it's true that black Americans don't want to help Latinos, because that's what he's implying. And we all know black Americans, or black people in general, are the most welcoming people, the kindest people. There is no way that black Americans, it's not in our nature to try to hold somebody back. We'll help another minority first before we will help our own. So let's test his theory. Now, I have several examples, but I'm just going to play two. All right, let's go.
The first DJ to play Puerto Rico, they dared to play it. Ralph dared to play it. He said, nah, we're going to pump this. We got the Latinos back. So it's kind of a little, sensitive to me when it comes to this whole Latino thing, because I went through a lot with the whole Latino thing. 1997, there's a 2-page article in Source magazine, and we talked about, Latinos. And back then I was very bitter when it came to Latinos, because I seen a lot of the doors, I seen the envy and the jealousy when it came amongst the Latinos. I was getting a lot of love from the blacks, believe it or not. And I have to really say the reason why I'm probably successful today was because of the African American brothers in the industry who believed in me, who said, Latino, come on, you're gonna roll. Funk Master Flex is one of them. He approached me, Frank, who's managing you? I need this Puerto Rican, DJ / producer, rapper, whatever, by my side.
Also being Latino, see, I don't see no difference between Latinos and black people, but just being Latino in Harlem and winning amateur night 4 weeks in a row was a major, major thing, And just the way I was always embraced, and Harlem itself.
All right, let's go.
So then once we got the wealth, what we do, we duplicate the behaviors of our oppressor. So then once the conglomerate became black powered, it was hard for Latinos to make it through, because if you let one in, you're taking one out, right? If you got a new number one, that means you knocked out a number one. But if you 1 through 10 are all black, then you only see that replacing each other. So when whites seen rock and roll and all his music in the top 10 be challenged by the black, they want their space. They secure that piece of the pie. Ain't nobody sharing pie in America. Who the fuck lied to you? You got to steal it from grandma's window and eat it while it's hot. So what I'm saying, they ain't going to share the piece of the pie. They don't want to, if they give you if they tribute you and they give you that right, then that means you got the right to claim that profession since it started. So that means our Latino people who've been out in years, they should be out there talking like KRS-One about how they started hip-hop, how Latinos were in the beginning and the forefront, how they are the pioneers, using the same words without judgment of the other side that's unit, because it was 50-50. Anyone claiming it just wants to be a supremacist of a superior race doing something that happened in unison.
All right. So again, he's saying that just because Black Americans are trying to claim their legacy, that we're being divisive. So basically, they just want us to lay down, let them steal our culture. Just be quiet, Black Americans. Don't start no trouble. Just let everybody in. Don't stir the pot, because the moment you stir the pot, Black Americans, you're causing a problem. So he's trying to say we're making this claim to hip hop because we're trying to shut the Latino out. So our claim is bogus because we're not including the Latino. So now his thing is, well, Latinos, well, you start doing the same thing that they're doing. You start claiming hip hop and leave the blacks out. That ain't how it works, brother. Let's go back.
That profession since it started. So that means our Latino people who've been out in years, they should be out there talking like KRS-One about how they started hip-hop, how Latinos were in the beginning and the forefront, how they are the pioneers, using the same words without judgment of the other side that's unit, because it was 50-50. Anyone claiming it just wants to be a supremacist of a superior race doing something that happened in unison between cultural people. Yes, they have gotten better in the pie and got most of it, but it isn't what because they started it. We were baking that pie with them, and it was...
Man, how disrespectful is that? Black Americans didn't start it. We did this together. No proof, but we did this together. Let me go back just a little bit. Man, this guy is disrespectful. He's wilding.
Superior race doing something that happened in unison between cultural people. Yes, they have gotten better in the pie and got most of it, but it isn't what because they started it. We were baking that pie with them, and it was 50-50. So anybody who gives Joe slack for that, they can start giving me slack for it too.
Well, that's it, guys. That's what he said. Like I said, he never offered any dates, any pioneers anything that they actually did. He just basically said that they were 50-50, and I say so. That's basically what it is. It's 50-50, and I say so. So here you have another Latino making false claims to a culture that's not his. If you can't point to any cultural influences, guess what? It's not your culture. It's really simple as that. You can no longer use the word multiculturalism. That should be out of your vocabulary until you can identify cultural contributions to the foundation of hip hop. that word has to be out of your vocabulary. That goes to every Latino and any Jamaican or any Caribbean or any African person who utters that word multicultural. You have to show where your culture is in hip hop. Absent of that is Black American culture. All right, so with that, let me close this video out. Please like, subscribe, share, all right? Have a good day. Peace.